American Women Writers National Museum sponsored The Business of Romance. And my name is Janice Law, and I'm the founder of the American Women Writers National Museum. Women purchase 70% of the books sold in America, and yet we, women, purchase 70% of the books sold in America, and yet there was no national museum to honor our fabulous women writers, American women writers, historical and contemporary. And that is the mission of Autumn, to honor our American women writers, historical and contemporary. We're in the second year, and I want to see a collection of videos. We have about 55 videos of our programs on the website, www.americanwomenwritersnationalmuseum.org. And the videos and our honorees are divided into categories such as journalists, poets, screenwriters, playwrights. We had a fabulous program on women playwrights. That was just magical, of playwrights. And I'm having one next month on composers, women composers and librettists. They're known locally as songwriters. So if any of you would like to come to that, we have some of the top librettists in America. And one of them has her work in New York. So they're very, very famous. So come to all of our programs that you can. They're on the website. But today we're going to talk about the business of romance. First, business, Christian, our great videographer, who's won an Emmy. Christian's an Emmy award-winning videographer. He knows that I always tell people why we don't have stuff now. We don't have objects to look at. Because people say, well, you're called a museum. Where's your stuff? Where's the stuff? And so usually I've been giving us in the past that we're going to get stuff. But I took a hiatus over the summer, and now we have stuff. We have actual stuff. I have amassed a collection of Nancy Drew mysteries. Early on with Drew scholars, but I have some of her books and so on. And then we have some videos. Louisa May have a program coming up, and so now we do have stuff, just for the record. Anyway, today we're going to talk about the business of romance, and business, of course, includes selling books. So I want to mention to you all that if you want to purchase any of the books of our great authors that we have today, they're all here, their books, on this side and that side. We also have some jewelry that was brought by, at my request, by one of our panelists. So feel free to look those over and make a purchase. And also every month we honor women writers from 4 states. It's called the 50 State Project. And this month we're honoring women writers from Nevada, New Hampshire, New Jersey, and New Mexico. I'm going to give brief introductions of each of our fabulous panelists. And I'm going to ask an initial question. And then one of our other persons who helped me plan this, Amanda Bryce. Amanda, where are you? I'm right here. Oh, there she is. She's hiding by the podium. Then she's going to take over and ask the remainder of the questions. So I'll start by introducing our great panelists today, the business of romance. Our first one is Janeen Solberg, who is the lady to my right, and in the black and white checkered dress. And Ms. Solberg is manager of Turn the Page Bookstore, which is owned and operated by Bruce Wilder, who is the husband of mega-selling romance novelist Nora Roberts in Boonsboro, Maryland. And Roberts, as many of you know, in her long career, has sold approximately 400 million books. She's perhaps one of the best-selling authors of all time. Solberg is a former high school English teacher. She has a Master's of Art in Literature, and she recently won the Steffi Walker Bookseller of the Year Award in 2012, sponsored by the Romance Writers of America. We value the industry and the bricks and mortar stores that are putting books into the hands of readers and providing a sense of community in our neighborhood, is one of the quotes that Solberg told an interviewer. Our next panelist is Joyce Lamb. She's the lady in the black jacket down here. And Ms. Lamb is a blogger for USA Today. She began her journalism career while still a student at Northern Illinois University. She worked her way up to news editor at the Rockford Register-Star, and in 1998 she moved to USA Today, where she works as a copy editor in the money section. She has published 7 novels and been a 3-time finalist for the prestigious Reader Award. Rebecca York / Ruth Glick is the author, and she's the lady in the black and white also, right, with the black jacket. That appears to be popular. Yes. The black and white. And I lost my place. I lost my place. Sorry, I just completely. It's okay. Here we go. She's the author of more than 125 romance novels, published in 22 languages, with worldwide sales of 13 million. Her work includes the Decora, is that correct? Decora Security series, centering around a detective agency where the investigators have paranormal powers. She has a BA in American Thought and Studies from the George Washington University and a master's from the University of Maryland at College Park. Cassandra Corcoran, Avery Flynn, the wife is Avery Flynn, the lady in the orange and raspberry colored outfit.
Yeah, I look like a sherbet.
She writes the Layton Family series. Jack and the Beanstalk Zombies is her latest novella. I love that title.
The zombie starts.
Hide the Wonder, the first in her new 3-part series, will debut in December. She describes her writing as about alpha heroes and the women who tame them.
Yes.
You mean men can be tamed? I've never known that.
It's fantasy. Yeah.
It's fantasy.
You have to let them think they tame themselves.
Oh,
it's all a key.
That's how you do it. Okay.
You could use a whip.
And 8 years ago, she founded her own communications business, Cassandra Corcoran Communications. So these are our great panelists. I'm going to ask a couple initial questions, and then I'm going to turn it over to Amanda Bryce. The first question is about what question Ms. Solberg gets asked the most as manager of the bookstore, Nora Roberts bookstore. And we want to keep this discussion not on how to write romance books or how to get an agent. We're not going to discuss any of that. This is going to be strictly about marketing once you have a book in your hand. So, Janeen, what is the most frequent question that you get asked? You have to come up here because the videographer has to.
We're ready. Manager of bookstore approached today. Author, so they want the store unannounced without payment, whether they email me without addressing me by name. And I would have to say that getting a book into the public's hands is obviously a huge concern for new authors particularly. And not everyone who writes a book or decides they want to write a book recognizes the effort and work that goes into finding readers. And obviously the world has changed since the digital era, and at Turn the Page Bookstore we only deal in paper books, so I'm only speaking from the industry from that element. But getting your book into the hands of readers is a big challenge, and it's a concern for new writers. And I find that as they walk in that door or send that email, there's this sense of, help me. How can we make this work? At Turn the Page, we're very event driven. I mean, we're a little bookstore in a town of 3,000 people. We need to draw people in through well-advertised events, and we depend on our authors to advertise those events that as they're participating in them. And a lot of what I end up doing for those the authors that are floundering in those early early years, is to take them through the step-by-step process of, how to, how to approach, how to greet, how to handle the public, how to find the public. And I can't answer all of those questions all at once, but I can say that that it is very important for new writers to be willing to work with your public. Just simply saying, oh, I wrote this book and everyone's going to love it. But getting people to read it is the greater challenge. And I find as I work with more and more authors, we book at least 50 authors a year for events. And so I've worked with a lot of different personality types as a result. And I find that those that are willing to put themselves out there and do that work and advertise and send pictures of themselves so we can put it on Facebook and spread the word through their own in their own avenues. Those are the ones that are going to greet fans, to create fans, and move themselves forward. So I love to see that, and I love to work with that and help cultivate it. So.
How do they find their audience? What are some suggestions that you have for them?
Well, I'm going to use last Saturday as a perfect example. I had an author from New England who approached me about handling her book that was published by Small Press. And again, I get these requests all the time, but this particular author had some. She had an energy. She didn't give up. She sent us an advanced copy with a lovely note and just, gave us a little bit of time to look at it, didn't let us forget about it. And next thing you know, I had an opening at an event. So I said, she's so enthusiastic. Maybe she won't mind driving down from New England on 5 days' notice. And she jumped on it. She was so excited. And when she spent those 5 days pushing the event in every capacity that she could. And then when she arrived, ready to go, she didn't just stay in the back waiting for the event to start. She went out throughout the store, talking to everyone who was there, waiting for the thing to start. She sold out of her books. She sold every single one. And she'll be back at Turn the Page because of that enthusiasm, and I'm sure she'll be back in many other locations as well. Like I said, she was no wilting flower. And I think that that type of energy is what it takes, really, for anyone who wants to put their book out there. You have to put yourself out there. It's one way that I would sum it up.
You had a personal story about yourself coming today.
Oh, I personally hate to speak in public. I think I said no to Amanda a couple of times, but she didn't take no for an answer. I would much rather be back at the shop fielding emails and working with customers one-on-one. But again, I am happy to have this opportunity, and I'm here to promote the store and what I do and what we do for authors. So sometimes you have to do things you're not comfortable doing.
Could you just tell one more story that you and I discussed while we were waiting about Nora and how her publishing company urged her to market Rob? That was a lesson at this point about marketing or something.
Ruth's probably quite familiar with this story from back in the day, but many of you might not be aware that Nora resisted the idea of having the pseudonym J.D. Robb for her In-Death series. She had the attitude that, I wrote those books and my name should be on them. But her publisher said, the time's not right for this. You're still building your fan base for romance, traditional romance, and the In-Death series, a homicide detective series set in the future, is too far of a leap. It's too edgy, there's too much violence. The romantic scenes, a little spicier. Again, we're talking about the 90s, early 90s. They said, let's go with another name, a similar name. So they selected J.D. Robb. She would be shelved. J.D. Robb would be shelved near Nora, but still be a separate persona. And I think what Janice wants me to share is the fact that after that particular instance, Nora realized that her publisher was right. They had after she'd established the fan base as J.D. Robb, continued to work on the fan base for Nora Roberts. Then there was the big reveal, as we now call it, and those two careers merged. And most people now are well aware that Nora Roberts does write as J.D. Robb. And it was a wonderful career move, a wonderful marketing move, and one that, as an author, even a successful author, she was, resisting what her publisher had recommended, and she learned then that they're the professionals, that they are the professionals, and that sometimes it's probably best to listen to their advice.
Okay. Rebecca, would you share with us, please come up and share with us, you're you sold, is it 1.3 million?
I don't know, what was it?
13. Only offer.
So is it just a matter of writing a book initially? Well, I mean, assume you don't have a reputation and you're just starting out. Is it a matter of just writing a book and then you sit there and everybody comes and buys your book, or what happens?
Well, it's somewhat the same thing that Janeen said, and it's changed somewhat over the years, because I think the main thing is that unless you write a book and the way you feel is, please, some publisher, take it. I'll pay you to take it. What?
Don't tell them that.
Yeah, right. I would have too. But after they do, they're not going, unless you are one of their stars, unless you're Nora or James Patterson or somebody big, they're not going to do too much for you. So it's the same thing. You have to do the work of, and I think
The stars.
right, well, that's right.
What were some of the things you did? Do you remember?
Well, look at me, I'm really old. So it was a lot of book signings at the beginning, which I think that they aren't, if you do it at Turn the Page, or if you do it at the Romance Writers of America, or RT convention, it will be a good experience. But mostly, people don't come to book signings that much. They did years ago. But I think that I bought print ads in RT magazine. That was one of the things I did. But I think that we've gone beyond that, and basically it's on the web. Where you're going to do your publicity now is going to be trying to connect with readers, people who might be interested in you through. And I think, there's a lot of different venues. There's LinkedIn, which I sort of haven't been able to really get into, and I don't think that's the best thing for authors. I think probably the two, and there's what is it called? Pinterest, which I can't get myself to do too much with, but I do have, if it gets big, I've got a site, and I do connect with people. But what I'm trying to say is, I think the two big ones are Facebook and Twitter. And somebody had said at a conference that you sort of have to pick your main one and stick with it. And I wasn't sure that I believed that, but I do think it's true. I think that you probably need to pick one and put most of your efforts into it. So I do Twitter. I try to tweet, a few times a day. And I have them linked, so when I tweet, it goes to Facebook. Okay, so then there's the confusion of, what do you do when you get on Facebook? Do you start collecting friends? or do you have a fan page where you want people to come like you? And there's advantages to both, because if you have friends, then you can interact with them and say stuff to them. And you can't do that with the same way with a fan page. So for a long time I focused on that friends page, and I do that a lot. I try to do it when I'm writing and I can't think of the next sentence. I go to Facebook probably, and maybe write something there. And I tell people what I'm doing, but I've also recently started working more on my fan page. And Norman, I never remember the name. It's not Network Solutions. It's
Web.com.
Web.com, who bought Network Solutions. They're our internet, they have the name, they have the Rebecca York name for my Facebook page, for my web page. So they came to me and said, we're doing some kind of promotion with Facebook. Would you like us to work on getting you more likes on your Facebook page?
For money.
For money, right, yes, for money, I'm paying them. But in less than a month, they've doubled my fans, which is kind of exciting to me. I have another thing I can go check now, and it's not just my Amazon number, but I can also go check and see how many more likes I have. And that's something else I should say. I have ebooks, I have traditional books. I'm they call it a hybrid author. And I have regular books. But my Decora Security series, the first one that came out was a short story called Ambushed. And right now it's free on Amazon. So for a couple days you could go download it, get it for free. And that's again, I'm doing that to promote myself. Not because I think, actually Ambush is probably one of my least, it's probably the Decora least good seller.
But it's still a good story.
It is a good story, it's a great story. But I'm giving it away partly so that people will get interested in the series. I'm not just thinking I'm going to sell more of that book, and I have seen, like over the last the last day when it went free, that the other ones are selling more. So there's all kinds of strategies you can try to do to promote yourself. That's one of them. And when I sit down, I'll probably think of a bunch more.
Well, you'll have another opportunity.
Okay.
I was going to call on Avery Flynn. I was going to ask her, Avery and I discovered before this that we both have a background in print journalism. We were newspaper reporters for many years. And we were talking about how easy it is for us to interact with people, because we're used to going up to people and asking them embarrassing questions and awkward questions and expecting them to answer us. So we don't have any problem with that. But we were also discussing, and I discussed this with some of the other authors, sometimes it's very difficult for others to present themselves. It's very difficult. And Janeen and I also discussed this a bit, how some people have, new authors have trouble putting themselves forward. In other words, they're kind of shy, which isn't going to help you in selling books. So Avery, would you kind of address how an author should present herself, and maybe some tips on how you do it and so on in that regard?
Always brush your teeth. I would say I moved around a lot growing up, changed tons of schools, and I have a sister who's 4 years older than I am. And the best advice I ever got, and she ever gave me when we started a new school, was don't sit by yourself at lunch, and don't sit in the back of the classroom if you get to pick your seat. And those are great pieces of advice just for life in general, and especially when you're a new author, a baby author like I am. And, you know, going into a new environment is to always don't sit by yourself at lunch, because they have the big tables and they have numbers. And I just went to my first RWA, and that was overwhelming even for me, and I'm a social type gal. I had to go take a nap one day because I was overwhelmed. I was like a puppy. So definitely, you know, see that seat, sit down. People are just as nervous as you are, more than likely. I will also say that having mixed with many different groups of professionals and writers specifically, that the group that's with the romance writers, they are overwhelmingly friendly. And many of them are introverts. And if you are an introvert, like me, they're your people. They're your people, and they will welcome you. So they all work really hard at being nice to each other and welcoming each other. I've never worked with a group of people who've been more, I have a random question, who do I go to, and I throw it out there, and somebody knows the answer, and they're willing to share. So just kind of remember that, and don't sit by yourself at lunch is really the two best pieces of advice that I would give for going out there. And the easiest way to start a conversation is simply, what do you write about? Because everybody there is writing with you. And so that's great for when you're in writers groups. When you are in a reader-oriented situation, I have to tell a story first. Recently at RWA, Nora Roberts was there, and people get very nervous around Nora Roberts because it's Nora Roberts. And a friend of mine, Robin Covington, who's another author, was at a panel and sitting on a panel, and Nora was going on before Robin. And Nora's sitting there, and you could tell she was kind of a little bit nervous, or at least, zoned by herself. And people were like doing the animal in a zoo thing. I'm unobtrusively looking at Nora Roberts. But nobody would come up to her. And that's got to be kind of an awkward thing. Not that she wants to be bum rushed, but, Robin sat down and talked to her for a little bit. And Nora is very approachable. I don't think she particularly, correct me if I'm wrong, loves being bum rushed by giant groups of people, but she is not nearly as scary as you might think she is. So, and I tell that story because as authors, we're all readers. We are all readers, and we love to read. So when you are in a reader-oriented arena, you're actually with your people. You're with the people that, read about Rourke, and you're with the people that read, all the same authors that you do and love the genres that you do, whether it's paranormal or straight mainstream romance or, crazy things with aliens. These are your people. So, you just start talking books, and it opens up a whole thing. You're with your rabid fans. So definitely.
Okay, thank you. Joyce Lamb, if you would come up. Joyce is a blogger with USA Today, so obviously she has a huge built-in forum, and maybe she could ask you to do two things. Number one, address the issue that we just addressed. How is the best way for new authors who don't have an established reputation to present themselves? And if you could give us some statistics, or if you have any knowledge about the business of romance.
Actually, could you have my mic back? Thank you. I would say, I really like what Avery had to say about don't sit by yourself and, talk to other authors because when you build your network of authors, it's like it snowballs, and you end up with a huge network of friends and authors who also have readers. And romance authors they just love to promote other authors. I mean, the community is so supportive of each other, and I think that's really important. So it's like you become buddies with, I don't think Nora Roberts is going to go around and push your books for you because she has things to do, but, when you, but, other authors have blogs, they have Facebook pages and stuff, you interact and you kind of get to know people. I think readers want to know that we're people too, and they like to interact with us on a personal level because they feel like they know us because they love our books. And one piece of advice that I would give on something I've learned from doing the blog is that I think readers really appreciate hearing about you more than your book. Because they can relate to you on certain levels, like what your favorite 80s songs are and what your favorite TV shows are and that kind of stuff. It's not so much, it's like, well, here's my book, this is what it's about, and this is why you love it. It's like, well, that can get a little pushy. And so I try to encourage authors when they're doing guest posts on the blog to, you know, talk about stuff that other people are really into, like, and I just started a new feature not too long ago that has been hugely popular. It's even more popular than I expected. It's called a 3 Things post, and what I do is I feature 3 authors who are talking about 3 things, like their 3 favorite TV shows, their 3 favorite romantic couples in TVs or movies, their 3 favorite, the 3 things that are on their bucket lists. You know, the kind of stuff that normal people, not that we're not normal, but, well, you know, I guess that's debatable in some cases, but because, you know, someone who loves the show Castle and finds out that you love the show Castle might go, oh, we have the same interests, maybe I'll try her book. So that's going to hook people more than saying, my book is about blah, blah, blah. Unless it's erotica, then it's like, hi Susan, how are you? Oh, please come in. This is a colleague of mine, Susan Haas. She's a huge fan of romance authors,
And
just so you
I
know.
apologize for being so late.
Yeah, traffic is crazy. So anyway, I would really encourage, you know, it's amazing how many guest posts I'll get from authors. You know, I kind of, you know, I give people, it's like, you know, whatever you want to write about is fine if you want to write about something that's related to your book. And it's kind of amazing how often I get a post that is just about the book. And there's no personality from the author in there. And, you know, romance authors, we wouldn't be able to write fun books if we didn't have really good personalities. So I think that's important to show who you are when you're meeting with readers and when you're trying to encourage them to get interested in your books. Statistics. Let me look at the statistics. This is a really fun part. The greatest thing about romance publishing to me, being a copy editor in the business section at USA Today, is that, you know, I see on a daily basis the effects of the recession. And it's been devastating. I mean, every single day it's like layoffs and, you know, people being furloughed and their pay being cut and having to give up all these perks and all this stuff. But the romance industry has remained steady. Book sales are at 1.4 billion and they stay there pretty much, you know, all through the recession, which I think is a huge boost for us because it shows that people really appreciate that our happy endings help them in their lives. And, you know, they turn to us for escape, and when times are good, they want to escape, and when times are bad, they want to escape. So I think that's a really great statistic to know that, you know, even when things went in the toilet in the economy, our industry was still going strong. I did an informal study of the top 50 USA Today bestseller list, and 25% of the titles on that list were romance.
Oh, wow.
That's a quarter, you know, like up to 20 titles on that list were romance. And they were all kinds. I mean, EPUB, they were erotica, they were traditional, it was just everything was in there. It's so diverse, and I just think it's amazing that it's like that, and I've been trying to get USA Today to cover romance in print because of that, because it's like, look, 25% of the bestseller list at USA Today is romance. And so it's still a battle I'm fighting, but, you know, I think that's really impressive, and, you know, I love using that statistic at work. Well, you know, subtract those 25% titles, and too, it's like in the last couple of weeks, just in the last couple of weeks, you know, I've started getting notices from the regular books editor in New York about how, oh, another one of your friends is debuting at #1. It's like, what can you tell me about Maya Banks? What can you tell me about blanking on the left, the other person? But just trust me, there were two. Yeah, it was someone. It was a YA author. I'll think of it probably as I'm driving home.
Yeah. We're in the shower.
Right. But okay, so the market share of romance in the entire book industry is like 17%, which is pretty impressive too, considering all of the different genres that are out there. And that's just romance, is 17%. That's more than mystery, more than inspirational self-help type stuff. You think that people would need a lot of self-help, but instead they do romance. And yeah, isn't it? And I couldn't actually find statistics on how many books are sold a year, but I did find that there are about 9,000 titles a year published, and that probably is just traditional publishing. That doesn't count the self-publishing, which I'm sure is probably another 9,000 or more.
Yeah.
So
Like
it's
9,000 a month, probably.
it's massive, massive.
So can you make money writing
Oh, yes.
romance?
Yes, you can.
Yeah.
I'd say that 80% of it is luck. You know, finding the reader at the right time when they're in the right mood, and you haven't irked them in any way. Like Janeen said, being enthusiastic, it's really hard for introverted people to be that way. Being a journalist myself, one of the reasons that I thought of the blog was that I have such a hard time promoting my own books because I'm supposed to cover the story, I'm not the story. And so, you know, I thought, well, you know, if I do this blog, I can promote, you know, authors, and then, you know, at the same time, I'm out there too, interacting with them. So, that, you know, that felt like a big help because of the introverted part. And plus, when I interview authors on the blog, I try to ask them fun questions that normal people don't usually ask. Like, you know, an author a million times gets asked, you know, where do you get your ideas, how do you do your research. Actually, I have a funny story about research. A coworker once asked, he had read my book, and he came back and said, well, that was a really sexy book. And I'm like, yeah, and he goes, how do you do your research? And I'm like, so I'm like, well, you know, of course the IRS kind of questions some of my deductions sometimes. You know? And he kind of never talked to me again after that. But I was just like, well, that's kind of, I thought he was kind of kidding, you know, so I kidded back. But, you know, people, we get asked, you know, questions. And so, you know, I try to ask authors, you know, if, like, for instance, Jane Graves, when I interviewed her, I saw on her website that she was a huge fan of Big Bang Theory. So, I asked her some Big Bang Theory questions and, you know, stuff like that. So you know, I think, I can't even remember what your question is now. Sorry.
I have another one.
Okay, good.
You mentioned that when you approached an editor about the bestseller list, and the editor called you and said, hey, a romance novelist once again. Is this a sort of snobbiness on some people's part, or why don't they, I mean, why do you get that type of resistance?
Well, I think it's something that's been a part of the romance industry from the beginning. You know, it's women writing for women, and that's not, you know, an unusual attitude that women kind of are second class sometimes. I would say that
It's like you say women's fiction, you never say men's fiction.
exactly, that's true, very true. And it's sort of, it reminds me of, I saw this video the other day of, from Ellen DeGeneres, where she's talking about Bic for Her, which is pens that are marketed for her, like, I'm like, and she does this whole spiel about how, oh, thank God, I wondered why that pen didn't feel right when I was writing this, you know, stuff like that. And she just does this whole thing about how goofy is this, that why do women need a pen? It's like, you know, really, can't you just go do more studies, health studies with women? And, you know, it's like they always do the men first and stuff. So I think it's something that has perpetuated from the beginning. And I think people who aren't familiar with romance fiction, so many times, I work with a room full of really smart people at USA Today, and it never fails that, you know, I have a new book come out and someone will come by and say, oh, I read your book and it's really good.
Yeah, we're shocked.
Yeah, and it wasn't like, oh my God, it was really good. It's really good. And it's kind of, there's this tone to it, like, I'm shocked. And, you know, and of course that's inevitably followed up with, and it was really kind of naughty. Yeah, but, you know, that's the fun part. I mean, you know, get over it. But you know, it's just kind of, I don't think that's ever going to go away. I don't think we'll ever win that battle, even with, you know, 50 Shades of Grey out there being the huge seller that it is. I think people, if you haven't, it's really hard to change people's minds. And if they're not going to read it and try it, then you can't change their minds. You can't. It's sort of like politics. It's like, people are set in their ways, and they're not gonna give on certain things. They don't want to be seen with those books, which is kind of tough. Yes.
May I ask, as you look through statistics, did you find a demographic profile and educational level for romance?
Yes.
Oh, could you repeat the question, Joyce?
Oh, sure. She's asking about the demographic profile of women or readers of romance.
The educational level.
That's a
Yeah,
good question.
I'd say, do you have that?
Yeah, it has statistics on it.
I know it's like 31 to 49 is the age. It's women,
It's actually the most educated.
Yeah.
most educated, and they're often in relationships. They're not lonely cat, well, I'm sure they love cats, but they're not, it's not.
They do not have 42 in the house.
Well, they might, but that's not their life, Well, actually, 42, I guess it would be their life, but. The greatest percentage of romance book buyers have an income between $50,000 and $99,900, which is 50,000 is way above the median income for the United States, which is it's like 42,000, I think, is the median. 44% of romance book buyers consider themselves frequent readers. 31% are avid readers, and 25% are occasional readers.
Education is out there.
Education,
I know it's somewhere.
religion, you have that?
It's pretty well, I'm sorry?
Education, religion, and geographic location.
I think the geographic location it's worldwide, and most of the romances that are written are by American women,
Yes.
white American women. Probably the majority of romance readers are white American women. I think that's changing.
I don't know if I agree with you on that.
Well, it's okay, I'm just conjecturing.
Yeah.
You can disagree. Do you have
But you don't have,
I
you
think
don't
we
have, educational level would be important to know how to write it.
The statistics that
Stand
I,
up because
Oh, I'm sorry.
Stand up next to
Come
Joyce.
up here.
sorry.
Yeah, because this gentleman, I need to call on Amanda.
Sorry.
No, no.
The statistics I've seen, unfortunately, I don't have them with me. You're looking at, we already went income level. Your age range is usually somewhere around late 20s, early 30s at the bottom end to, all the way on up are your age range. Most romance readers have college educations, at least a bachelor's degree. And if you want to come up to me afterwards, I can give you a card and I'll find a way to I know I've read these before.
It's on the RWA website.
On the
I
RWA
can't get a
source.
connection here, but
Yeah.
I believe, I want to say it was somewhere in the 30s to 40%.
Right,
have-
40%.
have at least a bachelor's degree or higher, which is higher
Higher than the
percentage of any
national
other fiction.
Right, for the fiction genre. And, basically, your stereotypical, I shouldn't say stereotypical, your average romance reader is a woman. She's probably white. She's educated. She's middle income. She's married. She has kids. And whether she's reading as an escape, whether she's reading as stress relief, whether, whatever it may be, she's reading. And she's reading a lot. And my favorite thing is that romance books are not like lipstick. You don't find that one shade that's perfect for you. Romance readers love many different authors, and they cross genres. Unlike a lot of other genres, like a science fiction, somebody who reads a lot of science fiction reads a lot of science fiction, and that's pretty much what they love to read. A romance reader loves to read science fiction romance, and paranormal, and historical, and contemporary, and suspense, and they love it all. So, for romance, writers are not lipstick. There's many shades for everyone. We're like Black Cherry from Clinique. We're good on everybody.
Oh,
I'd like to introduce now Amanda Bryce, and she'll tell you a little bit about herself. I believe that's her writing name, but I know she's a fellow lawyer. I'm a lawyer also, and I know she practices law in her spare time. And she's going to tell us something about herself and address this topic as well, and maybe ask some questions.
I'm Amanda Bryce. I'm the immediate past president of Washington Romance Writers. I know there are a number of our WRW members in the room, so thank you for being here. Actually, 3 of our panelists are WRW members, Rebecca, Joyce, and Avery. Washington Romance Writers is the RWA, for those of you who may not know, RWA is Romance Writers of America. That's an acronym we've been sort of throwing around all morning, all afternoon. WRW is the Romance Writers of America official chapter for the DC metro area. Although we do have members actually all over the country, since we're a really awesome chapter. one of the largest chapters in the U.S. and one of the most active. One of our founding members was actually Nora Roberts, so we have a deep history and a very active and prolific history.
I'm a founding member too.
And Rebecca York is also one of our founding members. It's a great chapter. A few years ago, maybe going on 2 years ago, I first met Janice when she was in the initial planning stages for Autumn, and I'm very happy you contacted me because it's just been wonderful. After she got everything up and going, and I've been to a few of the panels and they've been wonderful, I got to thinking, since romance does control such a huge share of the market today, hey, can we do a panel on romance? So I sort of needed a little nudge to Janice, but I'm so glad that she invited us here today to talk about this. Real quick.
You had some statistics you said, Rebecca?
Oh,
You want to do those, the stats?
the stats I was going to call on, you had called on
Oh,
Joyce
okay,
for those.
okay.
But I have a couple questions for our panelists. And any one of you who wants to come in can talk about this. Actually, this would be a wonderful one for Janeen. Janeen and Joyce, actually, both. And this is what, I know we've talked about that romance is like a lipstick and there are many different shades, but what shades are doing particularly well today?
Besides gray.
Besides all 50 shades of gray, yes.
Well, from my experience with book buyers, I would have to say that I'm seeing a lot of small town romance as probably a subgenre that people are really drawn to right now. And I don't know if it has to do with what you were talking about, Joyce, earlier with the economy, or just sort of this sense of a safe place, a small place that we can still have these wonderful experiences, yet still have a sense of well-being, love, romance, family. I think people respond to that, and they're responding to it right now. I would, not that I, follow all the blogs or keep up with all the trends outside of our store, but just talking with customers and seeing what they're buying and what they're looking for, I would have to say that's where I see things going. And I think it is, sort of a sense of, the world's a scary place, but small town America is a safe, friendly place.
I would add that on the blog, I'm seeing a lot of interest in new adult, which is like young adults in their 20s. So young adult is like high school and, that kind of stuff. And then new adult is college. And there's been some controversy actually about the sexual stuff that's in new adult. But, 20-year-olds are in college. Of course they're going to go at it like rabbits, right? That's what you do in college, right?
We're learning a lot about you.
That research that But no, it's like the new adult, I think it's because the young adult readers, the Twilight readers, are older now, and they want, they want to relate. So I'm seeing a lot of that. It seems to be very, very popular.
makes very good sense.
Rebecca, do you want to speak to that?
Yes, I want to say something.
Do you want to come on
which
up?
is-
please?
Sure. Right, well, I wanted to say, people ask you about your research, how do you do your research for love scenes? And my standard answer to that is I write romantic suspense and nobody asks me if I practice murder. I'm able to write about it, you know. I think that there's some difference in what's really popular in print books and what's popular in ebooks. And I think that there's a lot more erotica being written by women and read by women as ebooks. I had just gone to RomCon in Colorado Springs, and all the writers had a little party at the beginning, and each person was saying what she wrote. It was like every other person was writing erotica, which kind of blew my mind. But I think that you'll see it less in the print books, because people, it's the whole thing about, yes, if you can put a guy with a tie, you know, just his shirt and tie on the cover, then it's probably okay. But they, some of the covers of the ebooks are quite sexy, and you
But
wouldn't.
this is quite plain,
Right.
and nobody on the metro knows
Right.
what you're reading.
Unless you have a big font and
Yeah.
you're looking over your shoulder. So, and the other thing is, inspirational romance is really, and that would be in bookstores, big now. I mean, so you've got the two ends of the spectrum where you have Christian romance, that women who want to read romance, but they want it to be very clean and oriented toward faith. And I think that is, Harlequin has actually started, you know, took over and started her line, and also I think the Christian publishers themselves have a lot of books.
Real quick before we wrap up, I just wanted to talk about ebooks. How has the digital revolution affected romance, or conversely, has romance affected the digital revolution? And Cassie, I know you have a lot of ebooks, so. Yeah.
It's my turn. I love digital books because my books are digital books. No, I think I approach it from two different wavelengths. As a reader, I love digital books because of the immediacy of it. I will read a book review in the Post, or I will read something on Happily Ever After in USA Today, or, you know, whatever it may be. Somebody tells me and I whip out my phone and bam, it's right there. It's like the pack of gum as you're walking out the store, you know, you buy it. So it's lovely. And I also have 3 small children, so my big man chest covers, you know, I try not to leave them around. I don't want to give the little boys, you know, complexes. They're only, you know, 8. So, you know, digital books are great for that. The immediacy factor, you get the same book, and a lot of times, the ones that I buy at least are a little bit cheaper than me going into the store, and if you're a romance reader, you read a lot, so your book budget is huge. So yeah, and plus I don't have to hide the bags as I'm walking in from the bookstore for my husband, which I have ashamedly done. So that's great. As a writer, I love the opportunity that digital books gives you. Publishing is a hard business. It is a gamble. Those of you that do publishing, I would never want your job. I mean, you put so much effort. For as much effort as an author puts into their books, the publisher puts in that much effort for every single book that they're putting out. So you're taking a risk with your one book. They're taking a risk with, you know, 100 books that they put out that year or whatever it may be. So I understand that for traditional publishers who do print, that it can be difficult to take a risk, to try something a little bit different. I think that digital publishers have more leeway, they have less overhead, they've got a little bit more leeway to try something different, to do something that's really weird, like Jax and the Beanstalk Zombies. You know, that's a weird little story, especially for romance. But digital publishers are willing to take a risk on different genres. I think that's also good for readers, because then you're not getting the same And I will use historicals because I love historical to read it. I would never want to write it, but anything that says Duke and Rogue on the cover, you know, I'm buying it. And, but, you know, sometimes as a reader, I want something different than a Duke that's a Rogue, you know. So, and traditional publishers may not want to take that chance, but a digital publisher will do that. Their turnaround time is quicker. So, for instance, right now, new adult's really hot, or, you know, whatever it may be, whatever the trend is. Whereas a traditional publisher will take a year or two to get a book on the shelves. Digital publisher can have it out there easily under a year.
Often in a few months.
Yeah, depending on your publisher, often in a few months. So, yeah, I love that aspect of it for
Can I add
digital.
something?
Yes, please do.
Can I come up there?
Come
Since you came up there. I would say as an author of digital books, there's the control factor is fantastic because you control what your cover looks like, what, you know, how you control everything, and once it's out there in digital, you can still change it.
Yeah.
And I mean, as an author, it's, I mean, covers are changing all the time, so it's like, you know, the trends with the man chests and stuff like that, you know. You can go with the trends. You can futz with your covers over time. You can update. You can fix typos. You can, you know, there are all these things that traditional publishers can't do because it's in print and it's, you know, it's going to be that way. And I also had an author who did a post for me where she changed the ending, or she wrote an alternate ending for her book based on reader response. She had a book that had a love triangle in it, and the heroine picked her hero at the end, and there were readers who were on the other team and wanted the other guy picked. So she went in and she wrote she wrote another ending, and I'm like, oh my gosh, how fun is that?
Can you write that to Janet so she knows?
I want Stephanie to pick.
Well, these days she could just have both at the same time.
I'd be good with
You're
it.
not.
I just need it. Sorry.
Yeah, she needs to do Joe and Rangers.
Along those lines.
Sorry, happy place.
Along those lines, Joyce, are there any like trends you're seeing with, like you were saying, the ability to do alternate endings or whatever? I know right now bundling is a really big thing.
Sure.
Are you seeing any trends in the digital world that you wouldn't have seen in the print world, like marketing trends or whatnot?
Sure. Well, I think there's a lot of monkeying around with the prices. I mean, you know, you try to find the sweet spot. We went through a stage where ebook readers would only buy 99-cent books. And then suddenly 99-cent books were, oh, well, it's only 99 cents, it must be bad. So they would only buy 2 99 books. And a friend of mine actually did quite an extensive spreadsheet from I think it was the USA Today, the long list, like 150 top USA Today books. And she compared, you know, what the genre was and what the price was and whether it was an ebook. And it came out that the majority of the ebook romances that were on the list were $3.99 or more, which that surprised me.
Yeah.
So of course immediately I'm going to go raise the prices of my books to $3.99, right? But you know, you can't do that as a traditional publisher because it's printed right. You know, the price is printed right on there, right? So I see that, you know, a lot, that, you know, things are changing, of course, and then we do the free stuff. But like you said, bundling. I have about 10 authors got together and put out a bundle of 10 suspense or romance. I think they were all suspense, I'm not sure, I don't quite remember. And it was like only 99 cents for 10. And you know, that's a great idea because you might buy that bundle because you like this particular author, but then you have 9 other.
Or you might just buy it because it was 10 books for 99 cents.
Exactly, like I did, yeah.
Or novellas, bundling of novellas, I've seen that a lot too.
And also prequels, or they'll, you know, if you have the long series. Actually, this is traditional authors will do this too, where they'll have, you know, publishers will only publish your books, you know, twice a year, or, you know, once a year, unless you're Nora, you get six a year. But they'll write like an e-novella in the middle to kind of like tide people over, or you know, to keep them fed. So.
Amanda, can I ask a question?
Sure. Yes, I'm open to questions. Were you
I-
finished?
Yes,
Open it to questions? Yeah.
if anybody has any questions,
Yeah.
start with Allison.
Thank you. I was hoping to ask Janeen actually.
Could you say your name for the?
My name's Allison Leota.
Okay.
So I'm wondering about bookstore etiquette. Your remarks at the beginning made me think, oh my gosh, have I been committing a literary misdemeanor? But whenever I'm in a street city, I'll go into like the bookstore and be like, hi, how are you doing? Look at the books, and sometimes introduce myself if I'm not feeling too shy. And I'm wondering, am I annoying that manager by going in without an appointment? Am I doing more harm than good? So that's a specific question. And then generally, can you just tell us, what do you like when authors come in? What do we do that's great, and what do we do that really annoys you?
Boy.
Oh,
Sure, sorry.
video.
First of all, I didn't want to give the impression that I don't like meeting with authors. And that's
But
what
should
we're
we
here
make an
for.
appointment?
But the, I think general rules of civility just need to be practiced. If I'm talking with a customer and an author comes barging in the door with their agenda, and I'm supposed to drop my interaction with the customer or my phone call or whatever else I'm engaged in, to address someone who's they just got the first copy of their book in the mail, then it's simple manners, honestly. That would I would certainly think that most people would understand, when you're making that connection, you want to put your best self forward. And that means being polite, for starters. Whether you need an appointment or not, it really just depends on the store, but it also just depends on your willingness to be open, recognizing that even though you are just dropping in, the person may or may not be present or available to have a lengthy conversation. So, being positive, upbeat, and being flexible is certainly important. I do get a lot of email requests from all over the country from authors. I'm not sure how they found us. They don't always say. Sometimes they'll mention the store specifically, and sometimes it's clearly a form letter. And if it's not addressed to me or to the owner of the store, I've just learned to hit the delete button. I have too many requests to be addressed as a non-person. So I wait for for the author to come along who have enough self-respect to respect the industry, really. And I get a lot of pleasure out of working with someone who's ready ready to hit the ground and work on it. We do a lot of hand sewing, which again, small store in a small town. But people want to come in and talk about what they've read. They want to know what you've read. They'll just walk around the store. Did you read this one? Did you read this one? And we have to be ready to answer that and help lead them, to a book that fits, and that's still happening. Not as frequently as it used to as bookstores close, the left and right, but it is still happening, and there is that sense of people do want interaction. You can't just spend your life with your iPad. So that's why our events are so popular. Yes, I know, as well as anyone here, that people come out to see Nora Roberts, and that's why we had 250 people lined up down the street, to a degree, but they love being with each other because they're all readers and they all love to talk about books. They don't mind waiting in line because that's time with people who understand what they understand, who like what they like. So multi-author events are a wonderful idea. Ruth, I think you mentioned how sometimes there's this awkwardness with single author signings.
Yes.
We don't do single author signings. We don't even have Nora Roberts signings alone with just Nora there. We want it to be interactive. We want it to be social. We want authors to meet the other authors, meet with the fans.
and just, party atmosphere. We've also started adding girls' night out events where it truly is a party atmosphere, where we have the refreshments, the champagne, and we just, throw the authors in a room with food and people from all over, and, best man wins. We all have a great night. It's fun. The register's up there. And these are great times, and people are looking for opportunities to get out to that third place. So it's, again, living with the iPad. I think that you have to recognize that people still do want to interact face to face and get out there. And another trend that I'm seeing in the print industry is the book as a work of art. If you have noticed the trades that are starting to be produced with the cover, this is Born in Fire. It's been out for ages as a $7.99 mass market. It's gone through a number of different covers, but now the trade cover, the French flap, the art inside, lovely photograph. People read this, 15 years ago. But they're buying it again now to keep it, to have this in their possession. Because it's something that they do value enough to own. So I love seeing cover art evolve, and people do buy a book for the cover.
Yeah.
And so I'm liking that trend as well. I sometimes equate ebooks to drinking champagne out of a styrofoam cup. Not that it doesn't have its value, and it still packs a punch when you need it. But the aesthetic of reading a real book and touching a real book and holding a real book, I think goes hand in hand with that need to interact with real people in event settings. So please don't discount that as you as you move forward, and try to and I think electronically, Facebook, Twitter, and so on, that's your starting place. A lot of people show up at our book signings with picking up on a conversation that they left off with that author the night before. Oh yeah, she finally logged off at 11:30. I can't wait to see her. I'm like, you talked to the author until 11:30 last night, and now you're here to talk to her in person. Because fans are interacting with authors like they're building friendships. And then they want to see that person face to face. So it all works together.
And Turn the Page is great at that, at creating an event, this special thing that is unlike anything else that people can go to and experience that.
We put a lot into it, and we enjoy it immensely. Yes?
What sort of budget do you think the writer ought to have to supplement whatever efforts you have to market the book? Could you repeat the question?
She'd like to know what type of budget an author might consider to help market an event.
A book and an event. Yeah.
As far as marketing a book, that is not something I
Or to market it in
would
your
say.
store. Yeah.
But I think word of mouth, I don't think you need a huge actual budget. If you're already utilizing Facebook particularly, or you have connections with your paper, your local newspaper, there are so many things you can do to get yourself out there that don't cost anything. I coordinate some events in our town outside of Turn the Page, and I'm the queen of free when it comes to getting the word out. Know people at your newspaper office. Know who to send a quick email and say, I've got this going on. Here's a little write-up. I think you can work this into a story. Help a reporter out. They love that.
There's actually a website you can get on the newsletter for. It's called Help a Reporter Out, Haro, and it's awesome. They're always every day they send out probably about 20 to 50 queries of newspaper reporters who are looking for experts in blah blah blah, and a lot of times there may be, a lot of times, it may be something that ties into your book or you know about, and they'll always say, Amanda Bryce, author of Codename Dancer, blah, blah, blah. Like, it's a cheap, super cheap, like free way to get some potentially national exposure.
Yeah, making those kinds of connections and working with media that's already in place is great. I still didn't answer your question as far as funds. I would say that the very least an author can do is to provide the staff with an advanced release copy or a reader copy. And start building that relationship with the people that can hand sell your book before and after the event. We had Kristen Higgins at the store a couple years ago. I cannot stop telling people how nice she is. Because she was wonderful to work with, and of course we work with many wonderful authors, but it's just one example of somebody that I hadn't really paid that much attention to. Oh, she's got some cute books. But once I met her, then it's an easy sell. It's an easy sell. So I don't think money is as much of an issue as finding those avenues and building those relationships.
Can you give any advice for a self-published author to work with a physical bookstore?
Self-published authors. We have a local authors section in our store, and we're approached a lot by local authors. And my advice would probably be to be prepared for the store to wish to carry your book on a consignment basis, because often self-published books are through publishers that bookstores aren't used to dealing with typically. Yes, we've heard of them all, but so be prepared to start on a consignment basis. They can have autographed copies in your book, but your job is to make sure that the public knows that that's where they can buy your book. When I have a local author come into the store, we're more than supportive, but then to hear the biggest selling point about the person's book is that it's on Amazon. And it certainly doesn't help me as a little shop on the corner competing with Amazon. So that's not your selling point. Your selling point is that you know people in the area who want to buy your book and can walk in the door and buy a signed copy. So get your book into the store before you contact the newspaper, before you contact the local magazine, so that at the end of that nice article about you, they can list where to buy the book. And sure, they'll list Amazon, but then they can also list a store nearby. And I think as far as self-published authors, that there's a lot of legwork that goes into it, a lot of legwork that goes into getting your book out, but you can do it. And just have that book with you wherever you go. And remember the rules of civility. Thank you.
Shove it under the door stall to people in the bathroom.
Are there any other questions? Questions for anyone? Joyce, oh yeah, go
I
ahead.
wonder if you can give us, the authors who are here who have successfully marketed your books, an idea of an average income one can expect after a couple of years.
No, that's a good question. How about Joyce? Do you want to talk about Joyce?
I can be very detailed.
Yeah.
The average. The question is, what is the average income that you can expect for a
For a new
author? Okay.
Okay, so my response to that is you can't expect it. I mean, if you go with the New York publisher, depending on what it is that you're writing, you may get an advance, you may not get an advance. I mean, things are kind of evolving, mostly probably because of the recession. Publishers are trying to cut their costs, so they prefer to pay you on the back end rather than up front. I know ebook published authors, indie published authors, who they've made millions because they got the formula great, you know, it's like not the book formula, but the selling formula. They hit it with, you know, a big series, and they kept, you know, putting things out, and they interacted with their readers, and they did it, you know, they were running on all cylinders, and they made it. And I know book authors who have also done, you know, everything that they possibly could, and it just didn't happen. I mean, it's all about luck. It's in connecting.
The more copies the more titles you have, the better chance.
Right. The more as you go along,
Yeah.
you know, you can. You know, there's no formula for it. It's just luck, and I mean, it is hard work, obviously, but you know, I can't really explain monetarily. We're not in it for that, or most of us aren't anyway. I think, you know, people who've made $1 million or whatever are probably like, holy crap, I made $1 million.
I think the only thing we can say is you'll make somewhere between a few $100s and a few million.
Yeah, that's good.
Don't give up.
And and you know, you're doing it because you love to do it. You're not doing it because you want to make $1 million. And if you are doing it because you want to make $1 million, then, you know, get a job, because you know, it's rare.
Can I add to that?
Yes.
Okay, because I am very business minded. Yes, sorry.
We're the tag team.
We are the tag team. It's me and Joyce. Oh, we missed. Okay. We're physically coordinated too. I'm business minded. I believe in looking at ROI when you're looking at investing marketing dollars. I think you should go in with a plan. I think the best answer that I can give, which is also as vague as Joyce's, is that the first Washington Romance Writers Retreat that I went to, it's a big association. There are amazing authors who are there. There are people that you walk in and you're like, oh, Candy Maxwell's right there. You know, you get really excited about these people. These are successful people. I went into my first meeting with them, and there was a little retreat for people who were published. And I just sold my first book, and I was all excited. I'm sitting in there, and I, of course, am super shy. And so I asked, you know, how many of you make a living off of your books? How many of you have an outside job? Because Lord knows that's every writer's dream, is to quit that evil day job. Don't tell my clients. And 75% of the folks raised their hands. And then Hope Ramsey, who's another writer sitting next to me, and Hope is nice and blunt like me, and she goes, you asked the wrong question. She goes, how many of you could live off of what you make from writing without the help of a spouse or significant other? The number of hands raised went down to probably about 15% of the folks in that room. So unfortunately, it would be great if there was a simple formula like sacrificing virgins in your basement under a full moon, you know, and you'll make $1 million. I haven't tried it, but I hear it doesn't work. So it's a combination of luck and everything else, and when it comes to money, you have to go in it and hope that it comes, but don't quit your job. Best advice.
Okay, well, on that note, we're going to end, but you're welcome to come and ask the authors and the publicists and our panelists, some of, or all three, any questions you want. We'd be glad to have you do that. And I thank them so much for coming today. I really appreciate it. I could not have put this together without Amanda Price, so I'll give her the credit. She was instrumental in
I don't take no for an answer. I used to work on the Hill, so you know.
You're good at the arm twisting.
I'm good at arm twisting.
But just towards the end, of course, what we've been talking about, buy books. We have books from our authors, so buy books. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you for having us.